Okay, I stuck a jack right here underneath my axle and lifted it up to support front axle with these two stands. Now, that is just for me to get the wheels and the steering and the knuckles, or the spindle rather, out. Right now I'm getting this wheel off. I broke the lugs loose before I jacked it up. So let's see here. No, these are not weighted in any way. You can tell because they're pretty light. Which I kind of had that feeling anyway, because I had no moisture line on them the other day. And these lugs are 13/16, by the way. Okay, the first thing to do to get this hub assembly off is we're going to take the dust cap off. That bearing don't sound too good. And there's you a good shot of how wore out the bushings are in the axle knee. Wheel bearings themselves aren't moving. That's actually in our spindle. Go ahead and take this nut off. My next step is going to be getting this tie rod out. And once this guy's off, we'll go ahead and take this steering arm off, which is this bolt right here. It's just another pinch bolt. Once that bolt's out, should be able to pull up this arm, take the keyway out, and then our actual spindle will come out of the knee. So first things first, our favorite friend, the cotter pin. This is why I say if you're going to restore one of these tractors, just go ahead and get you a cotter pin assortment, because you're going to need it. And the lower part of my joint is spinning. There's two ways you could go about this. Technically there's three. If you're lucky, an impact will pull it off. That's number one. The second is to put pressure up on this to ram the joint up into your arm, to put some friction pressure on it to help get it off. Your third option is to actually, this is hard as a rock, is to actually reach in here with a pair of vice grips and grab the joint itself and hold it and spin it. In my current situation, with my limited tool availability down here, I'm going to try the jack first. If you have access to an impact, do it first. Now there is a grease zerk down here, so I can't go right under the joint. And I don't want to lift the tractor, just try to put a little bit of upward pressure on it. And that worked. That's all it took. And as you see, my jack stand is still on, or it still has the weight of the tractor. There's a chance that as loose as that was, I will not have to use a pickle fork on this. I'll use the crescent hammer. It just fell right out. So now, our spindle is completely loose. A lot of up and down play, which when the tractor's on the ground, that's not really going to hurt you much. So this side doesn't really show it too bad, but there's a lot of, I guess you call it lateral play, if you want to call it that, of the spindle actually moving in the knee. There's a bushing here and a bushing here. The 8N, these two are the same bushing. On probably your 53 up to at least the 64s, these are different. Both are available. The 65 is probably a different bushing. There's the arm off, woodruff key. Now the spindle. will come out. They usually fall out, but I think this seal that's hard as crap was holding me up. And there's our spindle. And whew, boy, that bearing's toast. This is not supposed to be a multi-piece bearing. This is actually a single piece, but it decided to come apart. See? That should not happen. And these bearings are available. Now that's ready to be cleaned and sandblasted. And like I say, we'll paint this part here and the very top. Now this joint, it felt tight, so should be able to reuse that. We should be 100% honest with you. This joint may end up getting replaced anyway, because for some reason right in through here, right along the edge of the tube, all the threads are ground off. So that joint should slide out with a big long punch on it. The only thing left over here at the moment is this guy. This inner tie rod, if you want to call it that. Probably what I'll do is just leave that on this little piece here. And then I'll just pull this off of the tractor and do it on the workbench. But it's basically like I've done on the other ones. You know, take Cotter Pin, the nut, and then just lock it with a pickle fork. For now, I'm going to go ahead and work on the other side. Do what I did over here, over there. I want to go ahead and just take these, what they call the knees, which is like this part of the axle, off, just simply because it's less weight, and who knows, I might be able to use them bolts to actually lift this thing up. But I think what I'm going to do is just unbolt this part here and pull this front cradle, the axle cradle, the radius rod, and the center part of the axle first with the tractor. Let's get these knees off. Big old bolts here I loosened earlier. It's a good shot of how wore out everything is up here. Look at that. Should not be that loose. Shouldn't really be loose at all. Should be nice and tight. Whew. That did not want to come off. It's probably a good thing I did decide to take these off on the tractor. This would have been a nightmare on the ground. Alright, enough pussyfooting around. That's ridiculous. Them bolts should not be stuck like that. Now before I sandblast this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and get these bushings out. These are the spindle bushings, kingpin bushings, whatever you want to refer to them as. But these are going to come out, and I got to get all this grease cleaned up before I blast. This bushing, one that's right in through here, does not have a split in it. And I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure that when I did the 861 they were split, and I'm pretty sure the 8N ones were split. So I already took the other side out, and I ended up having to use a Sawzall with a carbide blade to cut it, and basically put a slit in it so I could collapse it. If you go buy a Sawzall blade, I highly recommend these torch blades from Milwaukee. Not sponsored by them or anything, it's just that these are a carbide tipped blade, and these things are great. They cut like a torch. My blade, I actually took and modified it, cut it down for another job. There's your product idea, Milwaukee, if you watch this video. And I can get that in there and get that bushing cut and collapse it around itself and pull it out. With my Sawzall currently set as it is, I'm going to be able to come in here at the bottom side, or outside edge really, of the bushing and cut it. With these being carbide tipped, not only are they going to cut that bushing quick, they'll cut your axle real quick too, so be very careful. Okay, so I have that one cut. Probably 90% of the way through, maybe a little more. I could come in here and cut it in this direction. However, when I tried that on the other side, I was kind of unsuccessful due to this little lip here. So now that I have that notch cut, I'm going to try and collapse it. And once it collapses, it should be able to come out. Okay. Well, surprisingly, this one actually was cut or split. So whenever I did the other side, I guess I magically hit the split mark on it. But now, the bushing will come out. So this one actually treated me a lot nicer than the others one did. I probably spent almost an hour on the other one, and you've seen me do that one in probably 5 minutes. One other thing I'm going to go ahead and do is the grease fitting down here. I'm going to go ahead and take it out. I'll more than likely put all new grease fittings on this thing, just because I don't want them to leak, for one, and you know, make sure I can get grease to actually go into them. So now I'm just going to take the knee, flip it over in my vise. The lower bushing is a larger diameter than the upper. So if you take the lower one out first, when you come up here to do the upper, you could either collapse it and get it to pull out the top, or you take a driver and just drive it down through. And when you drive it all the way through, once it clears the machined area where the bushing will fit, it'll basically just fall out the bottom. So this one is actually split right there. Let's see if I can easily get it to collapse. If not, I'll just drive it out with the bushing driver. Okay. As you can see right here, this is where it was split. I just got the screwdriver just basically driving down in there. I should be able to just drive that in and collapse that, and then just grab it with a pair of pliers and yank it out like I just did the lower bushing. Okay, so see, now I can wiggle that and it's loose. Grab it and pull it up and out. And You can see down through there where I drove the screwdriver, right next to the split. This bushing here has kind of what I call a lock right there. Those can kind of be a pain in the butt. It's basically kind of like a key way to line up the bushing, but usually they'll split anyway. So I'm not sure exactly how long that took me, because I'm sure I'm going to speed the video up just a little bit. But I probably changed, well, I didn't change them, but I probably got these bushings out in maybe 10-15 minutes. The other side fought me, and I literally think I spent about an hour and a half on it. So hopefully yours goes easy like this. But both of my knees are now ready to be cleaned up. Get all the grease out of this area where your spindle goes. Then everything will get sandblasted and painted. And then we'll put the new bushings in it. Alright, so I'm going to work on getting the radius rod here and this axle knee ready to go back on the tractor. And to do that, I got to put bushings in them. Your axle knee has these two bushings in it. The upper bushing is the same bushing as what's on an 8N. I think the part number for it is actually a 2N3109. This bushing is actually the same as radius rod. The only difference is it's a little short. So you can use this bushing in the radius rod, even though it gives you a different part number. It is the correct inner and outer diameters. I have this bushing that I actually bought because I actually found this out just now by accident, that these two are identical. So I bought this bushing and actually turned it down because it had a larger outside diameter. And it's actually a little long, so I'm probably going to have to go and grind it down anyway to make it fit. So you can always just buy one of these and be fine. The lower spindle bushing is a number NCA 3110A. And this one has a larger diameter than the upper bushing. And that's probably really hard to tell, but they do. So, since I'm going to have to cut this or go grind this one down a little bit to fit that axle radius rod, let me go ahead and work on that axle knee. And you can stick this in a vise or do this on the tractor if you want. I'm doing it here on some carpet since I have fresh paint. If you do this on the tractor, I suggest go ahead and supporting this axle in some sort so you're not banging on your center kingpin bushing. So the first bushing we're going to put in is right there. And you're just going to hammer it until it's flush with the top of the knee. And I'm going to just use this larger one to make sure it's good and seated. So there's that one installed. So now we're just going to flip it over. And we're going to install a larger bushing. Same process, just hammer it until it seats flush into the bottom. Okay, so there's that installed. So now, like I say, I got to go sand this guy down a little bit to fit my radius rod, and we'll get it installed. But the knee's ready to go back on the tractor now. Alright, so I got the bushing cut down. And now time to install it. And just like the other bushings, we're going to install that until it's flush. So there's, oh, I about dropped it there. So there's our new radius rod bushing installed.